everybody, welcome. Just gonna wait for a few more people to join and then I will get Curtis on. All right, let's do it.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hello.
Look at that beautiful green background.
Yeah, it's my favorite. Yeah, I painted that a few years ago and I moved in here and I get rave reviews from it.
Oh my gosh, it's the perfect, I love a dark background with art. What's that framed piece behind you?
Oh, this is actually one of our teaching artists. Her print. It's Dr. Matula Shakur. Is Tupac's stepfather, who was a political prisoner. Her
Yeah.
practice is based on telling the stories of those who've been involved with the justice system. So she does research on political prisoners and she creates art out of their stories. So that's Tupac's father. And this is Henry Owasso Tanner, the banjo lesson.
Incredible. Oh, I love it. I have a few pieces behind me as well, but
Yes.
I'm not going to get into it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm so excited to speak with you. We've got a number of people on, so I'll just dive in with the intro. Everyone, this is Curtis Young, the incredible executive director of Artistic Noise, which is one of the organizations that we are supporting with our Black Lives Matter art benefit. I mean, I want to get into your full resume. It might take us the full 30 minutes, but you serve on Manhattan community boards, youth and education committees, public safety committees. You've worked in the White House. You've just been a force of nature for education and youth and making this world a better place just all around.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'd love to just dive right in and start by asking, better from you than me, tell us a little bit about Artistic Noise and how you got involved with the organization and what you do.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be here, and thanks to all the viewers for joining us. I became involved with well, first of all, Artistic Noise is an amazing nonprofit that everyone should be aware of and be involved with. We work with young people who are involved with the juvenile justice system, being on probation, returning to community programming, or either still incarcerated while they're, continuing their process of transformation. So I became involved with Artistic Noise after working in education nonprofits for a very long time at these very large, well-funded nonprofits, and starting to feel a little bit guilty about what I was doing and not feeling of service. So as you mentioned with my resume, a lot of my work involves servicing the community. And I kind of went through the stage of trying to figure out what can I do to make a difference more local. I'm not just working on these large scale projects with young people around the world, but really getting more micro and making a difference using my platform, using everything I'm doing outside of work to really elevate the organization. So that's kind of been the driving factor towards my work at Artistic Noise. And I do other things outside the organization, but I think they all kind of connect, being on public safety, being on community board, advocating for youth. So I try to live a very holistic life where it centers around compassion and centers around service and being of service to the young people at Artistic Noise, but also the young people in the community in which I live.
Yeah, absolutely. And how much of a size difference was that between some of the larger nonprofits that you worked at to Artistic Noise? How big is the organization?
Yeah,
kind of what's the scope?
Most certainly, yeah. So my first education job was about 10 years ago, and it was at an international education resource network we worked in over 140 countries. So I was managing programs in Morocco, China, Taiwan, Korea, and
Wow.
so I traveled a lot for work. I was going there with young people to provide them with cultural exposure and training, linguistic training, and more cultural competency as well. We're working with international, communities and schools. And so that was a very large audience, obviously. We were sending over 140 young people abroad to learn critical languages. But I learned from that experience that the young people who were applying for that program were already able to have that experience. They were, wealthy kids from the suburbs who were able to get through the application process. So it was just it was an amazing program, but we were not serving kids in the inner city or in communities of color in general. And then after that, my most recent position was at the Ross Institute in East Hampton. So I was living part-time in East Hampton, which obviously has a whole nother, another demographic there.
Yes.
It was an amazing program, a great mission. I worked with the founder to kind of realize her vision for changing the face of education and really designing a curriculum that could really change the way education is delivered around the world. But once again, the demographic of the people we were serving were kind of not in line with where I saw my life being focused. So I had to make a shift. And, now we're much smaller. I'm working in a much smaller nonprofit, but I'm bringing to the table all of those experiences from those more, corporate nonprofit type entities, and being able to apply that to give service to the young people who work with daily at Artistic Noise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that scaling down sort of makes sense, and sort of feeling like, as one single person, you can have more impact, kind of on that smaller scale. So
and especially now everyone's talking about, how do you have equity in your organization, right? Working for large nonprofits, sometimes your voice is like not really heard because you're just one person in a room with, over 100 people. So really getting down to a grassroots sort of nonprofit like Artistic Noise, I'm able to work closely with our board members to make sure I'm heard and the voices of our young people is heard, and we're able to have a direct impact with our young people.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about, a typical participant in the program, and why they get involved, and what you do for them.
Yeah, we have a rule. They're young people, so they're like between the ages of 14 and 21. So a range of
very well.
Yeah, a range of personalities, and we work with young people who just made a mistake in life, a small hiccup. We don't really talk about their past and why they came to be just as involved, because that's really their experience and their journey to go on themselves. So we never really talk about that, and during our program, we unless they open up and tell us what happened and why they became court involved. So it's really not a focal point. Mm-hmm. We really just work with creative young people who are interested, who are looking to be engaged with something, and people who are offering something that could be transformative. That's the basic of that's all we're doing. We're working with young people who, are giving them art exposure if they're interested in art exposure, and hoping that art can be transformative and and it allows them to transform their experience into something positive. So that's kind of like, the I guess my framework of the young people that we're with.
Okay, great. And then you've got the two, I think it's the two core programs, the art therapy and the entrepreneurship program. How do those differ?
Well, the art and entrepreneurship program is based on building job skills. So we work with young people who are back in the community. So one of the biggest differences is that A&E program, we call it A&E. A&E is our community-based programming. So we've worked with young people on Rikers, we work with young people in probation if they have a continued interest in art and they want to continue to explore their artistic abilities, and working with amazing artists like Sophia Dawson and Nick Holliver as well. They can join our A&E program and learn not only continue to improve their artistic abilities, but they're learning job skills, coming to work on time, how to work with others, how to be collaborative in a shared space, all those skills that young kids would need growing into their professional lives. So that program provides that. The entrepreneurship portion of it allows them to make money from their art. So wow. All the art they create, we help them to sell it. So they learn to curate a show at the end of the year, and they are learning to put their art on the market, writing their project statements, their artist statements, and thinking of pricing their artwork, which is a skill that I don't have myself. But they learn
hard to master.
They learn these skills and they sell their work. So the A&E program is really centered around building entrepreneurship and helping the young people to see themselves as creatives. Some of them may want to go into art. We have examples of those who have continued to express themselves artistically and to really take off. Like we have one student right now who's starting SVA in the fall. He was in our program for a year last year, and he got accepted to the School of Visual Arts. We have some students who you'll see on our exhibition website coming up soon, that they're doing art at their homes without us even being involved. So they're starting to see themselves as artists. And that's the whole goal of the A&E program, is to really help them see themselves as creatives and help them get access to art that they would not have otherwise had. The art therapy program is art therapy is embedded into all of our programs. So we have art therapists on staff working with A&E, as well as working in our programs on Rikers and probation. And the goal of embedding art therapy into all we do is realizing that it is a very traumatic experience. Being court involved, going to court, talking to a lawyer, talking to a police officer is a very traumatic experience. And regardless of you being detained for 24 hours or being detained for a week or 6 months, it is still very traumatizing for any young person to have to experience that. So the art therapist provides that, like, that greater sense of support, helping them to understand their experiences and also help them to process other things around them, right? They're still, subject to pressures of society in general. You know, they can leave our office and get stopped by the cops and end up on Rikers Island. So there's all these examples, and the examples of the need to provide social emotional support and care for young people at this age, and the school system doesn't provide that. And unfortunately, sometimes not everyone has a family situation where they have that support. So our art therapists are there to provide that additional social emotional support and helping them to learn how to cope with them better themselves moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. That's so interesting. I mean, it's kind of like two different ways where you can use art, in the non-commercial way, which is just, the way that all of us use it. We've all been trying difficult times, and we find it is that kind of feeds our soul, and oftentimes that's finding a practice and ways to express ourselves through our artwork. And then the very business oriented, to sell your work is not something that have the opportunity to just because they don't quite ever figure it out. So are there any sort of examples? Obviously the student who's attending SPA, that's incredible, and I'm sure just an incredible success story. But when you're asked to report on how the program changes lives, you talk about kind of scaling down and looking at the individual kids. How do you see that sort of play out in other ways in their lives, even past the program?
Yeah, I think success, I would define success as, being able to help our young people make better decisions when they're not in our space. And we have multiple examples of that, where young people will be in conversation. They'll say, "Wow, yesterday I was with some friends, and they were about to do this, and then I told them that was a crazy idea, and we just talked about that in our office," and that makes me feel successful. That makes me feel like we're doing something right because we're instilling values into our program that they're carrying along with them outside of the program. And we're doing that through art. There's a lot you can learn from art. It's not just something on your wall or help you to cope. It is actually, you can learn a lot about discipline. And we can instill core values into all of our programs. So I would define success by that. We have countless examples of young people, being in compromising situations and letting us know that because of this program, I made better decisions because I wanted to be back in this program and not make a bad decision. So we've had young people who've gone on to work with one of our teaching artists, Nick Holliver, who I believe is watching. You talked to him yesterday. He had an amazing commission project, Birds on Broadway, and he hired one of our young artists, young folks, to work with him as an artist assistant. I define that as another success story. This young person had the opportunity to work with an artist to develop Nick Holliver doing this massive program, and when you walk down Broadway, you see that work. And I live around the corner from one of those birds. And I tell people all the time, I say, listen, that bird right there, it was created by this amazing artist, but it was also, he hired a formerly incarcerated young person to be his artist assistant to work with him for the duration of the project. And that right there is an amazing opportunity for someone, regardless of them being an artist or continuing to be artistic. I think at that particular example, this particular student continues to create work, and he creates the most amazing pieces of art that I can't even explain. I wish I had one. I wish I could afford his work now. He's too expensive for me. But yeah, so I think those are some examples that I see really standing out to me. We also have young people. Another great example is, obviously because of COVID, we've been struggling to maintain our programming digital, to be honest, in the digital space. And we are a program that's built around, community. Like we're the center, it's art, power, and community. So, how do we build a community in this virtual space? We've never done that before. So it was really challenging at the beginning of March trying to figure out how to do this. We had one student in our program who was with child or is with child, and she relocated to Puerto Rico. And we're thinking, oh, we're going to lose her. We're not going to be able to work with her anymore. But she had been the one student throughout this entire pandemic that has been actively participating online each week, every session. So it just goes to show how much they really value the work that we're offering them, and how the experience can really help a variety of people in a variety of situations. I mean, she's not here with us. She's not court involved now. She's with child, but the art is helping her to, process her pregnancy and to kind of decompress when she's stressed out about COVID and health concerns, being a mother.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think people like the Birds on Broadway project. I live near by a bird as well on 86th Street. I think it's the little ones perched in a row,
Okay.
if correctly. But even an example like that, that's so beyond just like the typical thing we think of when we think of artwork sometimes. Like, as outsiders, sometimes they think, oh, it's the White Cube Gallery or it's a museum and it's very intimidating. But being involved with projects like that, with living artists, putting art like on, or even seeing an organization and seeing that there are jobs like yours, programs like this in the arts. It's not just, you don't just have to be an artist selling work. Like, you can get involved in so many different ways, whether it's assisting or teaching.
Exactly.
Supporting others. So that's
it's and helping them to see that as well, because art is not accessible in communities of color. The school systems don't provide art classes, and I mean, they have art classes, but they're not as many as they should be, and they're the first programs to get cut when there is funding cut, as we see coming up now. But providing opportunities for our young people to feel comfortable when they're walking. You mentioned how do we report our impact? One of our survey questions at the end of the year is, how many times have you visited a museum or gallery without us being there? And it goes from like 0, like I've never stepped into a museum without our staff being with them, to like, oh, I've seen the new exhibition at the Whitney. You haven't seen that? So them really feeling comfortable in the gallery space, to be able to walk in. Another story, a little anecdote. One of our staff members went to the museum, to Whitney Museum exhibition at the Whitney a few years ago, and ran into one of our young people like on a date, talking to a girl about the exhibition that he had just gone on a tour with for us. So we love stories like that, because you can see how much how they're becoming comfortable with art, how it's becoming more accessible to walk into any museum in New York City. I'm telling you, it is not an easy thing for a young person who lives, in the community of color. It doesn't happen without some sort of like structured educational museum tour or guided, experience with like a mentor. But to have them have that sense of agency, like I also can walk into the Museum of Modern Art. I can walk into the Met because I am a New Yorker and this is my museum. This is my city also. So art is also part of my experience, and I'm not going to not walk into this museum and feel like I don't belong. So that's another success, or our indicator of our impact we're making, when they feel like the art is for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good point. And we think especially now about like COVID, with everything being shut down, none of us are able to go to the museums, but we need to remember that when things do start to open back up again, there are still populations of people who don't have that ability. So that's a really good point, and something we should all remember. So I'm going to get a little personal with you. Why art? Like, why visual art? Why not dance or music? Was there something in your own background that has drawn you to this?
I have a performing art background. I'm a saxophone player, so music was very therapeutic for me. Like, I don't think I could be the person I am without having my saxophone lessons in the 7th grade. And so I know how transformative and how much discipline you can gain from art. Visual arts, I think, tells a particular story. It's a way to, especially now, like, art for social justice is the big hot topic. There's so many ways to express injustice or to show injustices in a way that people are able to just, they're just at a loss, and they have nothing to say because they see it so explicitly, right? Like Sophia Dawson's work, even Nick Oliver, Birds on Broadway, is bringing light to climate change issues. So you can use art in a way to really, really promote, these intense topics, social justice issues, climate change, policy, political art. All that is really relevant right now. So that's why I think art matters so much more than it did before. We're getting inquiries from people who are, really like one of our students. You'll see this at our exhibition we're launching next week. At our exhibition website, we have a young person who did this protest, like what is it? It's she went to a BLM protest and she created a demonstration poster, and it's a beautiful piece of art. And I've been seeing a lot of people create, protest art, and seeing how messages are being able to be clearly shown through what they're creating it is a beauty of art.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And can you tell us a little bit more about that exhibition and the date and when it opens and where we can see it?
Yes. So we are doing an online exhibition now because, obviously we can't do a gallery show. So we're launching a new website, and we're going to be showing all of our work that we created throughout the year. We have our SBA mural collaboration project we'll be showing. We have some advocacy portraits that they created based on the lives and experiences of people like Meek Mill, Colin Kaepernick. And then we have some, we're calling it resiliency art that they created during the age of COVID and the demonstrations. So that is going to all be released and launched next week. I want to give you a date, but I'm afraid that I shouldn't, but we're going to go for it. July 26th.
July 26th. You heard it here.
July 26th. You can find the link. We'll send it around. We'll share that on our Instagram as well. But July 2nd rather. July 2nd is the date, and we will launch that by around 5 p.m. on July 2nd.
Okay, great. And that's a virtual, just purely virtual.
It's a virtual exhibition, exactly. Okay, and great. all the art that's sold on the website that day during the exhibition would go to the young people, 100% of it. Usually we would give 80% to them, but we're changing our policy to give 100% of all art sales to our young people.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, it's funny. My dad had a comment about how he actually prefers the virtual world in the arts because he actually attends events now because he could just sit on his butt and, watch from a screen instead of having to dress up and go out.
Yeah. It's a different way of engaging or interacting with art that I think is more intimate.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last question, I think, although I have a million more, so as an observer, or let's see, even as an artist or as an art lover, for anybody watching, citizens of New York, what are the best ways that you find to get involved and to fight for social justice, particularly in the arts realm? Me
personally?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a big question for only a few more minutes remaining. Okay, I say, how do we use art to fight for social justice? I think that is clearly done for me personally through the lives of our young people. I think I look at art as a tool to help share the message, as particularly the experiences of our young people being court involved. So it's not necessarily the art as a product, it's the process. It's the process of coming into our program day one, not having picked up a paintbrush, and then going through this entire process that is actually a process that promotes justice. It promotes equity. Their voices are heard. It gives them agency. It gives them, a voice to their experience. So that within itself, to me, represents the us trying to right an injustice and providing this opportunity that would not have could possibly have been offered in this sort of way. So that's how I have dedicated myself to, I guess, using art for overcoming injustices in the world and everything else that we do as well.
Incredible. And what about if people want to donate, where should they go? How should they, or can they get involved with Artistic Noise if there are artists out there?
Yes, indeed. Yes. So they're yes to both. I'll start with getting involved. You can shoot us an email, info@artisticnoise.org. We all check that email and we can respond immediately. We are collecting names of artists who would like to work with us over the summer, either a studio visit or a volunteer art class online. We accept any of that right now. So we love to engage with artists and to provide different types of art experiences for our young people. So that's going to be our ongoing program. We'll be hoping to book artists Monday through Thursday for an hour or two increments between 2 and 5. So if you're interested in doing any work with us and sharing your practice or your experience, or even just giving like a conversation to our young people online via Zoom or Google Hangout, we can organize that as well. And as for donating, you can donate to artisticnoise.org/donate. There's also the amazing Sugarlift exhibition that's happening, Black Lives Matter. Thank you so much. We've had several artists to donate their artwork and 100% of the proceeds are coming to our organization. So you can also go to the Sugarlift Black Lives Matter exhibition and check out the art that is being dedicated and donated to Artistic Note. So those are your two ways of giving money to us. You can buy art or you can donate directly.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you. And I think Eileen might be watching. Eileen Murphy just sold a painting that went to Elizabeth, who also might be watching.
Yeah. Thank you so much if you donated already previously to our organization. And thank you particularly to the artists who've donated, Eileen Murphy, Nick Holliver, there's a few others, Melanie. So yeah, I will be sending you all, I'll be calling you all personally to thank you over the next few days. Before
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I'll be sure to post this, tag this. Thank you so much for your incredible work and your time.
Thank you.
I hope we can shout it from the mountaintops and get through COVID and on to more things in the future.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.